Hello, welcome to this video. It's going to be different than any video that I've kind of done on this channel. We've had conversations before, and we've had reviews about games on this channel before, but I feel like that this is probably one of the most important videos that I've ever produced. And that is an honest conversation about Elden Ring and accessibility. And I'm so glad I got to be able to sit down with my friend Grant Stoner, who is an accessibility advocate and accessibility journalist, who has thoughts about Elden Ring. I won't spoil it for you, but I think this conversation is important for those who want to be able to understand accessibility when it comes to From Software games, when it comes to the conversation about difficulty and easy mode, as well as our thoughts on Elden Ring for accessibility, and then also just a little bit of how vast and varied accessibility can be. I encourage you to please try to watch this in full. I would really appreciate this. I have chapter markers for certain parts of the conversation if you want to be able to skip to those. But I think we kind of cover a lot of what we've been having this conversation for the past several years, and I think this is a good chunk of that discourse explained and talked about in this conversation. Also, if you want to be able to check out and do a little bit of homework before you start, much like the homework you have to do when playing Elden Ring, check out Grant's articles below about his conversation with a few developers about easy mode and accessibility, as well as his review for Elden Ring. It may not be available at the beginning of this or when this video goes live, but it'll be in the description down below if you're watching this at a later point. So that being said, let's jump into the conversation. I have something I want to be able to show you.
Okay.
And I'm gonna bring up this one video. I don't know if it's gonna be able to display, and I'm gonna edit this out if it doesn't work.
All right.
But
okay.
I want to show, before we even start this whole thing, I want to show you a video of what happened to me the other night. And I'm just gonna line it up here. I want to show you this.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
I can.
Okay, cool. So this is one of the bosses that was in that wolf cave.
Mm-hmm. These are one of the first, side bosses that many people encounter.
Yeah.
I love your dodging. You're doing very good at it. There it is. There it is. There it is.
This is my first time beating a boss ever.
You're experiencing the adrenaline rush and sheer jubilation of beating your first Souls boss by yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even do it by myself. I summoned 2 other people.
I did not expect it to get it as emotional as it did with this. But this is, because this is something and I'll admit to anyone who's watching right now, I've never done this before. I have never beaten a boss, whether this is a mini boss or considered like a major boss in the game. But this is the first time that I've ever done this in any From Software game. I played a little bit of Dark Souls. I played a little bit of Demon Souls, and I got as far as to a boss once, and I died immediately. This in Elden Ring is the first time I've ever been able to beat a boss. Now, those watching this will probably, and who are Elden Ring fans or stans or whichever, will say, oh, this is an easy boss. And I understand that. But I wanted to show that first because I wanted to have this honest conversation about accessibility and Elden Ring. And for those watching, I have my friend Grant Stoner here. Oh, on the other side. He is an accessibility advocate and journalist. and did a review for Elden Ring for motor disability for FanByte. If the link will be to that review when it's up in the description down below. But I wanted to have Grant on because I feel like that this is going to be a good conversation to have about the accessibility in Elden Ring. Let's have an honest and like conversation about it, because this has been something that has been a huge topic of conversation in the accessibility space. It's been a huge topic of conversation in the video game space in regards to easy modes and difficulty and accessibility, and it keeps reiterating this conversation over and over again over the past several years. And unfortunately, we have this one Forbes article to blame when Sekiro came out, and it had they talked about Sekiro should have an easy mode. That's when the whole discourse started, and I think in a way that kind of did. And correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, but I feel like that article basically put accessibility 2 steps backwards. Is that a fair assessment to say?
I think maybe not accessibility, but I think the narrative of disabled people enjoying these games it put it 2 steps backwards. Because there's already this like preconceived notions that journalists can't play video games. They're all awful at it. Whenever you throw an easy mode, and then you had disabled people be like, yeah, that's what we want. Then it just added this like, alright, well then disabled people don't deserve to play these games. Which we've all been dealing with for, what, 3.5 years now?
Basically, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And it's hard to kind of it's really hard to talk about this in any way, shape, or form on social media or create content of, because it immediately brings up a basic conversation from both sides. Those who are arguing for an easy mode because it's something that they can finally be able to play these kind of games, and then those who are adamantly against it. So I kind of wanted to have this conversation to basically break down this into what can make From Software games as accessible as possible, but still keeping the challenge of the game intact for all players who pick up the game, disabled or otherwise. And I kind of want to use Elden Ring as the catalyst for it, because it is, and I'll even say it, in my experience, I will say it is the most approachable From Software game that we've ever had. It's something that they have been improving over the past several games. Sekiro, apparently, you correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, because I think you've played Sekiro, correct?
No, I can't play Sekiro. It's the only FromSoft game that does not include fully customizable controls. Well, actually, I don't want to say fully because Elden Ring also does not, but there are certain actions in Sekiro that I need to rebind, and I can't, and I physically cannot progress in the game.
But in Elden Ring, the default configuration is there
for the most part.
Okay. So let's break this down, because I want to this is going to be kind of like a free flowing conversation. I don't necessarily have a full on outline of specific things, but I just wanted to let's talk about, because let's first introduce, basically, Grant, your review of Elden Ring, and then we'll kind of jump into my thoughts on it, and then we'll kind of continue on the conversation from there as it goes. So, what is your thoughts on Elden Ring? This is your opinion. This is your subjective review. That it is your thoughts, but also this can be able to reflect on certain other players' experience with this as well. So, what are your thoughts on Elden Ring?
I think, for me, it is one of, if not the most accessible open world games that I've played in recent years.
That's awesome to hear. Really?
It's not. It doesn't really have many options. But it's the perfect example of how inclusive design can make an accessible game, right? So for so long, um, disabled people have been taught that options are what makes a game accessible. If your game doesn't have options, it's not a good game. If it doesn't have this, it's a failure. And Elden Ring is the perfect example of a game that really doesn't have many options. The menu itself is relatively sparse, considering most games in the year 2022 have extensive menus,
Mhm.
but because it gives the player so much choice and so much freedom to truly do whatever they want, that's what makes this game, in my opinion, a masterpiece.
And that's when you mentioned that, because we're part of, like, we have some, like, we're part of some group conversations from accessibility, and you mentioned that kind of privately about, like, hey, this is like, and you even tweeted this out as well, like, you absolutely love this game, and that is something that should be applauded, because for you like playing these games, correct? Like, you've played several From Software games before.
I am a FromSoft stan, if you will. I love FromSoft games. I beat Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, and soon to be Elden Ring if I keep up with this pace. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love them. I love the challenge they provide. I know it's not for everyone. I will never say get good. You just said,
Hmm.
because that's awful. But these are my games. I love to strategize. I love to plan, like watch my enemies. I love to see what they do. I love to learn from my mistakes. It's just the kind of game I enjoy. And these games scratch that itch, if you will.
So, in comparison to other FromSoft games that you played, where does Elden Ring rank in regards to your accessibility?
It's at the top.
Number one. Okay.
Yeah, because of the open world aspect. And because of how much choice you're given to do whatever you want.
Okay.
It makes it so much easier. And I'm gonna use that word to like if I'm dying to a boss, I can just leave. And I
Mhm.
can choose to never come back to it. Or I can choose to come back 30 levels later when I have, much better equipment, much better stats, better spells, and I could beat it first try. You've never been able to do that in a previous Souls game. If you see a boss, you had to kill it.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that in this game. You can choose to leave it.
And that's why I think and I'm in full agreement on with you on that, and that is why I think it's probably the most approachable of a lot of From Software games, because of that aspect, because of the open world, and that you can skip a boss until you can feel like you're confident enough to be able to come back to it. Because the thing that about at least previous From Software games, one of the reasons why there was a lot of accessibility concerns with it is because of the linear nature of FromSoft games, where you come up against a boss, you have to beat it in order to be able to progress forward. And if you have some accessibility or like if your disability is getting in the way, then it essentially like you can't progress forward. You can't move forward into the story or into the game until you beat until you beat that boss, and you have to keep doing that over and over again. And even if you beat that boss, you have to do it again, and you have to do it again. Like, there are many bosses that you come across, but in Elden Ring, from the time that at least from the short play time that I had, I played basically I'd say probably about 5 to 6 hours at this point.
Mhm.
The ability to be able to see a boss, try it out, and know that, okay, I am not prepared for this particular boss because I get one hit kill, or I don't have this. I'm not fully prepared on the skills that I need for, I haven't upgraded a lot in order to be able to complete this boss. So I'm going to go somewhere else and and basically kind of like grind your way up to basically get better levels, get better weapons, get better spells, regardless of what like class you choose. And that video that I showed at the beginning of me beating my first boss, that is a perfect example of that. I didn't have to go to that boss. There were other bosses I could have hit, especially at the very beginning. There was the giant like golden knight on a horse.
The eraser.
Like that one is just brutal in and of itself. But I found that boss in a cave off to the side, near-ish the beginning of like in the opening area that you're in. And because it was a boss that was a little bit more attuned to lower level players or lower level characters, it was something that with the skills that I had, I was able to beat. And it was the first time I ever was able to do that. I've never done that in any From Software game I played. And that to me, I think is the beauty of this open world aspect of From Software games. And I think that it does make this game the most approachable out of every From Software game. That being said, of course, and I know we both like, I appreciate what's there. I love it. Is this an accessibility nightmare as well?
Yes.
For other disabilities? 1000%.
It's awful.
It's really awful. It is so like, it is bad. It is like, it doesn't, and here's just a small laundry list of the things that it doesn't have. No menu narration. The text size is pretty small. The the font choice in and of itself is also very difficult to be able to read. The contrast is also difficult to read. There's no subtitle background. There's no way to be able to increase the size of the subtitles. There's no visual indicators for any enemy that's attacking you from behind or from the side. There is also no navigational assistance. There is the way that they describe items in the game, cognitively does not make any sense. The fact that you can skip the tutorial completely by accident because it doesn't take you through the tutorial by default is that's also something that you can completely miss. The fact that also the first boss that you even come across is someone that is technically, as you said, Grant, to me earlier, it's an end game boss, and that's in the first opening area that you, as a new player, you have no idea if you are actually going to be able to defeat that boss, or if it's something that you just have to go through first in order to be able to get to the access to more of the open world. There is no the pairing system can be finicky as well. The dodge mechanic is okay, but can also be improved. There is no other options in the game. There actually is also an auto aim option, which really helps a lot when it comes to magic builds, because you can actually auto target without having to aim pretty much everything. You just have to be in the vicinity of that spell or that arrow or that bow and arrow to be able to hit your target. But it will automatically hit, which is pretty much for like 95% of the time. It will hit that enemy that you're targeting it towards, including the ability to be able to target back and forth. So, but also the camera also gets in the way, and sometimes that auto target can switch to an enemy by accident. And what you're trying to be able to hit, if there's multiple enemies around you, can be an issue in and of itself. The map is a mess. You have no idea where the heck you're supposed to go. There are these the sites of grace that essentially kind of point to areas you need to go, but if you follow that path, you actually eventually end up on the boss that is one of the toughest bosses in the game, and yet you're supposed to basically go. The map tells you you're supposed to go there to move forward, and if you didn't decide to be able to go explore the world around you, you have no idea if you're hitting a wall, your disability is getting in the way, or if it's just that boss is just really tough that you need to go back to at a certain point. There's no quest log, and I know people say, "Oh, just write down notes about it." I shouldn't have to have a notepad or sticky notes in order to be able to keep track of where I need to go and what I need to do. You can set markers and you can set waypoints on the map, but there's no indication of how you can be able to describe it or name it or whichever. So cognitively, it is also just a giant mess. That's just the few of the things that basically this game is really inaccessible. However, this is why I love talking about accessibility, because of the fact that Grant here loves this game. Actually, okay, yeah. You know what, Grant? I've just listed off a laundry list of accessibility issues. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's not going to work for a lot of disabled people. The barriers that are in place are going to pose so many issues for deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, people with cognitive disabilities, people even with physical disabilities. Some people may not be able to do it, even if you're using magic or a different ranged character.
Right.
It's not a game that I would recommend to people.
Yeah. And that's
for me.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
It's a game I would recommend to myself because I know my limitations. I know what I can and can't do. And this game fits perfectly within my, I guess, needs, you could say,
sure,
for accessibility.
And
would I recommend this to other people? No.
And that's the thing that I love about accessibility is, and this proves the fact of that a disability is a spectrum than it is an on-off switch. Because there are disabled folks that love this and can play it, and that's amazing. And I think that's something that those games were designed for them, and that works great. But for some folks who may even have the same disability as you do, may not be able to play this game. And that just goes to show that not every disability is the exact same. Because Grant loves this, and I see the beauty of it, but I don't like it, doesn't mean that that Grant is wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and he's right. It really goes to show how varied disabilities are and how accessibility should be seen as more than just options. Because Grant, I want to talk because I do want to touch on difficulty and easy mode in a second, but I do want to be able to know your thoughts on, because you had said it is the most inclusive designed game for you. What do you mean by that, and what are some of the things that you noticed in the game that you feel that proves that as you said, is inclusive in its design?
So like traditional Souls games, there are magic classes that you can use. They bring that over into Elden Ring, but they included a targeting system that for those classes is pretty intuitive.
I'll agree to that, actually.
They included, we touched on this earlier, the option to, well, not option, but the ability to choose whether or not you want to continue in a certain area, or if you want to continue fighting boss, or on top of that, if you're up against a main story boss and you're just getting your ass kicked, you can go level up 30 levels by doing stuff that not only is new, but rewards you. Unlike previous Souls games. Like you said earlier, Souls games are very linear. But if I decide this boss is too tough, I'll just go explore a new area. I could discover new spells, new dungeons, new items, get more souls to level up my character,
Mhm.
come back, and I can absolutely destroy the boss. I actually did that for the first main story boss. His name is Magritte, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, the one that everyone
Yeah,
is either loving or hating.
yeah. My friends are from Margaret. So we walked in
I like that.
to Margaret, just me and my buddy,
Hmm.
beat him first try in 30 seconds because we were so over leveled. Because
Yeah,
we just spent probably 13 hours just exploring and having fun. You can't do that in the other Souls games. If Margaret was in your way, you would have to fight him until he dies.
yeah,
Period. End of story.
yeah,
You don't have to do that here.
yep.
There's also a feature they added called the States of Marika or Marika,
I never know how to
which is
pronounce it. I just say
basically,
like the
yeah,
statues.
yeah. It's basically a checkpoint system.
Hmm.
So in previous Souls games, if you died, you would have to go all the way back, the
Yes,
same exact path,
yes,
encounter the same puzzles, the same enemies, potentially die again,
yep, yep,
losing your souls.
yep.
But with this, if I'm at a side dungeon and there's a stake and I die, I'll just get teleported right back to and I don't have to progress through all of this,
Yeah,
terrible enemies and dungeon traps and whatnot.
yeah, and that's if you were
That
able to like get to a point where you unlock a shortcut to be able to even get past some of
exactly,
those.
yeah.
Which was something
For,
that is a lot in a lot of From Software games, and I would agree with you. Like, I will say that when I first started playing the game, I chose a class that did not agree with my, not necessarily my play style, but I would say like it is difficult for me as a newcomer to this to the genre. Even though I played a little bit of some of their games, but I wanted to try Elden Ring because of just everyone obviously raving about it and being approachable. But I chose a class, the samurai class. Unfortunately, again, this kind of goes to add to this laundry list of accessibility issues. There's nothing that tells you like what the classes would be beneficial for newcomers. You can see the stats of each, but that really doesn't tell you a lot about how how that character can how that class can play. So I went with the samurai, thinking because it can do like, as I looked up a video of it, which is another thing. You shouldn't necessarily have to look up on the internet to find information about the game. It should be presented to you in the game as well. That's another accessibility thing.
yeah.
However, when I looked up a video about the classes of and which one was for me, I saw that samurai had a bow and it could be able to do some pretty heavy melee damage. That I thought was a good balance of what I should be doing. I wanted the range attacks, but I also wanted to be able to handle myself in a melee if I run out. Unfortunately, you run out of arrows really quickly as a samurai character. So I was like, I played like 2-3 hours, got my ass whooped every single time, every single encounter I did. And then Grant he suggested me beforehand, but I decided to go not necessarily go against him, but I was like, oh, I thought maybe samurai could do the same thing. He suggested astrologer, which is a magic user, but also has the ability to use swords as well. And that basically was night and day for me. Being able to use magic, and obviously you have a lot more magic use with the spells that you have at the very beginning of the game. And I was able, one of my proudest moments was that, again, is that boss that I did, but then also one of I actually was, it took a few tries, but I was able to clear an entire encampment. That the one that if you played it, it's the one that's nearest to like the beginning. It's kind of like in the ruins that you come across. I was able to sneakily, stealthily, actually attack pretty much everybody and kill them all. Whether it was just bringing out a few folks so I can basically just magic them, or sneak up behind them and use my sword and take them out in usually 1 or 2 swipes, and then that's it. And then I would go and there's like this kind of big knight, like giant, like kind of commander knight that essentially takes a little bit longer to be able to kill, but essentially I was able to do it. And I didn't know that it will reward you for it. It basically rewards you with like basically refilling all your flasks, which is your health and your mana. which
is another inclusive design.
Exactly. That's what I was leaning towards. Like, that's another inclusive thing. It basically refills everything, which is great. It rewards you for that. And I found an ash. I can't remember what it's called. The ash of war or something like that. I think it was something like that. Like in the underground ruin that's in the encampment. And there's also 2 large weapons. I can't use them, but there's 2 large weapons in there that can fit for a specific class. The game is good for that in inclusive design in that aspect, and that's what made me kind of like enjoy it. But you're right, like you could completely skip it, but you can also be able to use it. It's geared towards lower levels. Like technically, that cave with that boss, I used to have to because there's some wolves in that cave first that you go up against, and I thought I had to kill all those wolves first before I can get to the boss. Little did I know, and this is also because it's hard to see because it's very, very dark in this game. And
that's not an accessibility issue.
Yeah, it's so dark.
There are areas that are like, but that's not the only area that's like that.
Yeah,
a lot of areas are very dark, and that's the game's like atmosphere, which I get, but that's not. They should include some like, brightness settings or.
I mean, I was able to increase like the brightness or the gamma a little bit on my screen so I can be able to see it a little bit better. But there is like a torch you can be able to buy with some of your runes. But essentially you still have to get runes to be able to buy it. But then also like it takes up one of your hands. So you have to kind of constantly be switching to either your sword or your staff, depending on which hand you put it on. But I didn't realize that there was a path off to the side that I can go directly to the boss, kill only one wolf, and then go right into the boss fight. I didn't know you could do that until eventually, until after a few tries, I was like, wait a second, I could just go this way. I can bypass everything. And that's the thing about the open world aspect. Is like you can be able to bypass certain things and just kind of go jump straight to the thing. And like even at the end, it would like once I beat the boss, it said you can go back to the beginning of the cave. So I wouldn't even have to go out and kill those wolves to be able to get out and lose all the runes that I just collected from killing the boss. Like it's that kind of thing that's like I think is inclusive in its design, but because of a lot of disability barriers are getting in the way, it isn't as accessible as I wish that this game would be. At least for my particular disability, for blind/low vision. So now we talked about kind of about the game specifically. Let's broaden this out a bit, because obviously the conversation of easy mode and accessibility and difficulty will always come up when it comes to From Software games, because it is a very, very hot button topic, depending on which side you're on, whether you're on the accessibility side or just as an able-bodied player, like who loves these games or doesn't love these games, or if you're a hardcore FromSoft fan and you're either the toxic side or the positive side. It's a topic conversation that can garner any discourse, like a lot of discourse. And Grant, you actually wrote a great article. Again, I'll link it to the description down below on IGN, where you talked to 3 accessibility experts who are working at Square Enix, Xbox, and Ubisoft. And so I definitely recommend go read that first. But I wanted to, Grant, because you wrote it and you talked to these folks, what can you give us a not necessarily a brief summary, but just a summary of your thoughts in that you put into that article?
Sure. So before I begin, like, obviously, and you mentioned, none of these are my ideas. The developers are the ones who are the real experts in the situation. I'm just the journalist who makes words sound pretty. But
and you do it so well, sir.
Well, thank you. The topic of easy mode is tricky because accessibility and difficulty modes are the same thing. Easy mode is an accessibility tool, a good one. It's an accessible option. It's something that people should not be ashamed of using. People should not gatekeep it for being in the game. But the premise of my article is showing both disabled people and even able-bodied people who are against easy mode that it's not going to fix the primary issues that a game like this has. Um, if it was in the game, great.
Hmm.
But a lot of the issues with Souls games are pattern memorization, which people with cognitive disabilities may not be able to do.
Yeah.
Dark areas, which people like yourself
Hmm.
may not be able to do. Severe lack of subtitles
Hmm.
and environmental awareness,
Hmm.
which deaf and hard of hearing people cannot do with an easy mode.
Hmm.
And even just inputs for physically disabled people like myself. Um, Easy modes won't fix that because traditionally speaking, easy modes deliver like enemy damage. They sometimes increase your health, and they occasionally deliver like enemy aggression. And while all those are useful, especially in the Souls games, there are still significantly more barriers that are not going to be fixed because of this option.
Hmm.
And some of the people I interviewed gave example like Clinton, Letza. I'm gonna mention their names now because it's been several weeks since the article, so I think they're safe. Um, it talks about inclusive design, and they gave a very great example of like Souls games are already doing inclusive design. And Elden Ring is proof of that. Emilion, I'm gonna butcher her last name. I'm so sorry, Ame.
I know
She
Ame
is,
with so
yeah.
yeah. I think she's on.
Um,
I can't.
you're
Ame, we're
Canadian,
sorry.
never heard
We're
of it.
sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry, Ame. We love you.
We love you. Yeah.
She said that there is no standard to easy mode. There's no industry standard because you can't have that. Because each game features its own objectives and its own goals and its own intentional barriers.
Hmm.
So how can you include easy mode in every game when every game is different? You would literally have to design it from the ground up. And she gave an example. Just was at streaming. It's 2 games at the studio do feature difficulty modes, but they're vastly different in what they do
Yeah.
because the game is different.
Yeah. And
And
the two
then,
games she mentions are Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Guardians of the Galaxy. They have two
mhm,
different kind of ways they do difficulty modes in those.
mhm. And then Tara Walker at Xbox talks about like you can make games accessible through other options. Um, and she gave an example of Remedy's Control.
Hmm.
How it has an assist mode with varying options that can cater to a wide array of disabilities. Even Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart
Hmm.
has the speed adjustment.
Yep.
You can put on any difficulty with that feature,
Yeah.
but it just slows it down enough so people like me who have poor reaction times struggle with certain areas. They can do it. You still need to defeat enemies.
Yep.
You still need to complete the platforming,
Hmm.
but it slows it down enough where you can feasibly do it. So whenever the topic of easy mode comes up, I usually shy away from recommending it
Hmm.
because it's not the answer that people want it to be. And I
Yep.
really wish the industry as a whole would move away from that notion that easy mode will fix these games. Because quite frankly, as we've been talking about, it won't fix Elden Ring for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah, and I would be in agreement on that as well. I think, and this is where I talked about earlier, where easy mode kind of that conversation sort of took two steps back for accessibility, because easy mode in From Software games, and I mentioned this before in my Demon Souls video, but adding an easy mode into From Software games is like taking a crowbar into the experience and it will fundamentally change how the game, like how the design,
Right.
how the game is designed. And yes, is it an accessibility feature that will benefit other games? 100%.
100%. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
I think that From Software games need an easy mode? It would be nice, but I don't want it there. I really like. I would almost argue that it would definitely do a disservice to the game in and of itself. I don't know, Grant. I haven't thought about that, but like you wanted to say something about that. What are your thoughts?
I think the analogy that I always use for easy mode, is like, let's say you have a wound on your arm. It's really gross, but it fits with Elden Ring.
Sure.
Let's say you have a wound on your arm. Easy mode is just a band-aid. It's not going
Yes.
to fix the issues. And Elden Ring has so many other issues that easy mode will not fix.
Yes.
So if you're demanding easy mode and it gets put in, but that's all they do, you haven't really done anything.
Yep.
You haven't fixed the issues.
Yep.
Which is why I tend to like shy away from being like, yeah, easy mode in these games. That's not why you're having trouble. You're having trouble because of very inherent unintentional barriers that have yet to be addressed.
Agreed. And it's not to say that like we want the challenge to be like of this game to be easier. We get like both of us, we get and understand and appreciate how challenging these games are. And that is part of core of this gameplay, is how challenging it is. I don't even want to mention difficulty because difficulty is different for every single person, regardless if you have ability or not. And that's why I'm using the word challenge, because we as disabled players, we want the same challenge that everyone enjoys when it comes to From Software games. The only thing that we ask about when it comes to accessibility is whether it's built into the gameplay or there's options to be able to enable or disable, so that some of our barriers can be removed so that we can be able to play with the same challenge. You use your analogy, I'll use mine that I like to be able to say. Imagine trying to be able to play Elden Ring with a blindfold on, or with earmuffs, or with one hand tied behind your back, or both hands tied behind your back, or a combination of all of those. How difficult would the game be? How challenging would the game be at that point for you? What accessibility can do, whether it's built into the inclusive design of the gameplay or the options, removes the earmuffs, removes the blindfold, unties our hands, and what you're left with is the same challenge. It's the same challenge that everyone else can be able to play and enjoy. All that's been there, that's removed, is just the barriers that disabled people face on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that we want these games to be challenging. And I'll even add into this because I want to know your thoughts on this too, because there's a lot of people that will argue this game is not for everyone. I want to basically say that is kind of a terrible way to be able to a terrible thing to say for those with disabilities, because what if disabled players want to play this game? Grant, you're kind of proof of that. You're a disabled player and you want to be able to play this game, and you can, and then because of what's built into the design. And when everyone says, "Oh, this game is not built for you," you're right. But for those who want to play this game or want to play these games, they can't because of the lack of accessibility that's there.
Right. The best thing I could say for that is like, if you don't want to play the game, that's because it's just not your game. Right?
Correct.
Like, I don't like sports games. I'm not going to play a sports game. You shouldn't be barred from a game because you literally can't play it.
Yeah.
Like, if just these games aren't your thing, you're not a fan of it, that's fine. No one's judging you. Like, I know you're not a fan of Pokemon, and you know how much I love Pokemon. That's fine. I don't hate you that much. But, like,
Oh, now it all comes out. Okay, we're airing a lot of grievances today.
Yeah, this is a good therapy session.
Yeah.
But it's not because of your disability. It's just not your thing. And that's okay.
Yep.
But when people can't play these games because of the barriers, that's what needs to be addressed.
Yep.
And if you find that, the game is accessible to you and it's still not your thing, that's okay.
Yep.
But not because, like, you literally can't play it.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Like, it basically, to sum it all up, when people say these games are not for everyone, correct, but they should at least be playable for those who do want to play it. And
you should be able to try it.
They should be able to try it.
Least.
Exactly.
And if you find that you're just not having fun, that's fine.
Yep.
But if you're not having fun because of the barriers, that's a different conversation.
Yep. And another thing that comes up, I'm just gonna have this as sort of like the frequently commented things that we get all the time when it comes to this sort of discourse, quote unquote. Is another thing is that adding accessibility ruins the artistic vision of the developers.
I hate that line.
Grant, I'm gonna basically throw the softball this over to you. What are your thoughts on when people say that about artistic vision?
That's bullshit. There is not a
quote Grant. That's bullshit. Yeah. There we go.
There is not. Well, there shouldn't be. I'm not saying there isn't, because there may be, but there should not be a developer that goes, "I don't want people to buy my game, so I just won't do it." That just makes no sense. From a financial standpoint, in an industry that thrives off of video game sales, why would a developer just go, "I just don't want people to buy it. I don't want to make money off of this." It's just bullshit. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and the common misconception about developers is that they are adamantly against accessibility. I have not met one designer, one developer that is actively against accessibility. I mean, that could have been the case a couple years ago, but I have not met one that was purposely like, I am not doing this because I don't care about accessibility.
Even Miyazaki himself, in an interview with PlayStation, like 2 weeks ago, was like, "I don't want people to not enjoy this game. I want people to play it. I want them to beat it. I didn't make these games with the intention of, like, making you suffer." So, like, he even wants people with a wide range of disabilities to play this game.
Yep.
He needs to work on it a bit more, and I'm sure he will.
I hope
in
so.
the future.
I hope so.
But yeah, like, he's not like, "Yeah, screw the cripples. I don't care about them."
No, and he's never said that.
Never
and no one's ever said that. I mean, it's the common even quote of that gets tossed around is Cory Barlog, the director of 2018's God of War, and has been in kind of one of the heads of the Sony Santa Monica. He's basically said accessibility will never, I'm butchering the quote, but it will never hinder my artistic vision whatsoever. And and it's and that's another thing too. People bring up, well, accessibility costs money. Well, everything in the gaming industry costs money and resources. It doesn't matter if it's accessibility or not. If you're building a feature into a game, that costs money and resources. Whether or not it's accessibility related or not. Sure, if it's later in development, yes, it does take a considerable bit of resources to obviously create and then test and then get feedback on for accessibility. Yes, there is a fixed cost into that. But it's no different than any other time that they would have to hire QA testers or play testers in order to be able to test out their game, even if it was outside of accessibility. So it just doesn't make any sense that people are like, oh, it costs way too much money. No, it doesn't. It just takes time. That's all. Like, it's the same as everything else in the industry. It takes time to make. And if you're thinking about adding it in later on and it eventually delays the game, then you already done a disservice for accessibility in and of itself because you decided to add it in last minute. And if it delayed the game because of it, then well, okay, then that's your fault. But I've rarely ever seen or come across any game that that delayed a game because of accessibility. That could have been the case. I don't know. We don't know the secrets of a lot of the studios. But I've rarely ever. I would think that at least both Grant and I would have heard of this situation if it did happen somewhere. But I don't think that's the case. The most common thing right now for delaying a game is because of COVID. But
or crunch.
Or crunch, issues. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah,
I think that I agree with you. The artistic vision is just BS because every game developer wants people to play their games. Whether that their motivations are financial or just, hey, I want people to be able to play my game. Like that's every developer's, like, that's why they make games, is so people can play them. There's never been I don't think a developer that has ever said that has ever come out and basically it said that I only want specific people to play this game and no one else. Like,
yeah, it's just like, I mean, obviously developers make games for specific groups, like Madden. They're obviously making it for the people who enjoy Madden.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're going to make it so that, like,
no one else can play it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But they know they have their fans, but they're not going to gatekeep others out.
Yep.
It's just, like I said, bullshit.
Yeah, and that adds to another question that gets or comment that gets bandied about, is that why bother to add accessibility into a game like Elden Ring when it's only going to affect 1% of the player population? Like, it's such a small number. That is also bullshit. Because there are 400 million disabled gamers in the world. That's more than the population of the United States.
15 to 20% of the population has a disability of some kind.
That's globally, like of everyone in the world, 15 to 20% of the world has at least some disability. And there's been, like I said, there's been studies have shown that there's 400 million disabled gamers in the world. That's a large audience. That's the size of either a country or several countries combined. It's more than what Canada has, that's for sure. It's like I said, it's more than the population of the United States. That's a large number to basically make a game for. And we've seen games that do that create, and honestly, I would probably be willing to bet that a lot of disabled gamers who wanted to play Last of Us or Forza Horizon 5 or Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart probably would have never played those games before, or would have played games before, but because they had accessibility that worked for them, they bought it and played it. And that basically brought new fans to eventually, hopefully, like in some cases, found their next favorite game. And
100%.
Yeah. That's basically it. Like, this is not a small population. This is not a small number of people. It's just the way that society is. It's very ableist in that sense. In that we're led to believe that it's for such a small amount of people, but we are mighty. We are. There's a lot of us, and we have a lot. We have a lot to say.
I was also gonna say, like, people may get a disability later on in life.
That's exactly it too.
How do you account for that? Like,
accessibility. That's why we say accessibility is for everyone. It's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, and people kind of like scoff at it and whichever. But in, like you said it, accessibility is for, like, you're going to need it at some point in your life. Like, we're not getting any younger, and our reactions to our reaction time, our vision, our hearing, our dexterity is not going to be as great as it was when we first started playing video games. And if we want to continue playing this hobby, like, we start accessibility now, it's only going to make it a lot better for us as later on in life if we want to be able to keep playing video games. And that's why we say accessibility is for everyone, or we use the phrase when everybody plays, we all win, because that's also just a common cliche thing, but everyone loves those phrases. And it's cliche, but it's true. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Now, I can't think, like, is there any other commonly thing that we've kept seeing other than, like, I don't want to even bring in the get good, because that's just a misnomer. Like, no, who cares about, like, that's BS in and of itself. Is there any other common questions that you've seen about Elden Ring, or just about From Software games in general, that you wanted to address?
No, I think we covered everything. I think the one thing that we kind of touched upon this, like we said in the beginning, disability is such a vast spectrum.
Yeah.
That we should never be upset or angry at people if they're enjoying something.
Yes.
The Last of Us 2, an award-winning game.
Yep.
With over 60 options, I've never been able to play it.
Yep.
Because it's only on PlayStation, and I can't use the controller.
Yep. One of the most accessible games we've ever had, and
can't play it. Never touched it.
Yeah. Oh, you can't play it because of these controllers.
The PlayStation. Yep. That's it. Am I gonna be angry at others who are playing it? No. I'm super happy for them. They have a game that they can play, that they love, that brings them joy. That's what matters in the grand scheme of things. Like, yeah, it stings for me, but I'll never let, like, my feelings override others.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true. I know how much you love that game.
Yeah.
I know how much other people love it, and it's because of the accessibility. That's amazing. That should be celebrated.
Yep.
So while Elden Ring does have a lot of barriers, a lot,
Mm-hmm.
I think its inclusive design should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Because it does a lot of things really, really well. Yeah, other games can look to. Like checkpoints and player choice and all of that.
Yeah.
I think it should be celebrated.
I think so, and you're absolutely right. Like that's why I wanted to do this specific video, and it's not to bash on Elden Ring just for the sake of bashing on Elden Ring. That's why, like, to you, this is your kind of, like, I think you even said it, like, this is your game of the year so far, right? I mean, ish. I mean, other than God of War, you said God of War was your game of the year.
Well, it was replaced by Elden Ring.
Oh, it's replaced by Elden Ring. Okay, yeah, there we go. So that's the thing. I would
say, yeah. For this year, unless they come out with, like, Earthbound remake, Nintendo, please. This year, I think Elden Ring is my game of the year. Period.
And that's like, again, as we said at the beginning, and as you just mentioned, that's the beauty of accessibility, is that it's different for everybody, and we try to be able to cover as much as possible. That's why, like, in my reviews, I don't say whether or not a game is accessible specifically for specific disabilities, because I would be doing a disservice to anybody who, like, if I say a game is fully accessible to the blind, that may be true for a lot of people who are blind, but there could be one or two folks or a few folks that essentially they can't play it because of one particular thing. Same with you, as you mentioned, with The Last of Us. It is one of the most accessible games we've got, but Grant can't play it because he can't hold a PlayStation controller, and that's valid. That does not negate the work that Last of Naughty Dog did, but it also doesn't negate, like, it doesn't negate how you can't play it. And I would be willing to bet if The Last of Us 2 came out this year on PC, I would bet you would love it.
I guarantee I would.
Yeah, and so
like God of War.
Yeah.
It was console only. Came out on PC. Loved it. One of my top 10 games of all time. Love it. Love it.
And because you're able to play it in 2022 because of PC. Like, and that's why more platforms is better. And that's a whole other conversation. Like, more platforms.
That's our 3-hour video.
Yeah, that's a whole separate video in of itself. But we're kind of short. We're getting close to about an hour here, and but I wanted to basically reiterate. It's not that we're saying the game is perfect, and we're not saying the game isn't perfect. We're not saying the game is the shit, and we're not saying the game is great either for accessibility. We're just this is an honest conversation about Elden Ring, and I hope this is something that you can learn from. It's a lot of conversation here, and I hope that that for those watching this, that you learn something and hopefully would be willing to put down maybe some pitchforks when it comes to these kind of games and accessibility, and hopefully maybe this could, I don't know, now it'd be egotistical to say this hopefully end the discourse, but at least this kind of covers a lot of the discourse. It won't. No. But with that being said, thank you, Grant, for being for doing this, and I appreciate you so much. Love you, bud. Where can people find you online and find your work?
If you're gonna send me hate mail, don't follow me. But if you're not,
send it to Ian Hamilton. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Don't do
Ian,
that. Don't do that.
Ian, we love you.
Ian, we love you.
You can follow me on Twitter at super_crip 1994. And you can potentially see a review on Elden Ring by me in the very near future.
Oh yeah, no. More likely, this is because this is the way YouTube works. Is that if basically I'll have a link in the description down below for his for Grant's review wherever it ends up, and I'll make sure to put that in there. And also again, check out his IGN article as well about easy mode and accessibility, because they're two amazing articles. And so yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for watching. We appreciate you. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the description or in the comments down below. I'll try to answer as best I can. Comments for me on YouTube is very hard for me to be able to see and read, so I apologize if I don't get to them. But anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to be able to see more of my videos. Thanks so much. And as always, I remain obediently yours. Bye.